So welcome everybody. This is Bumps in the Boardroom presented by Lisa Barnwell and a global conversation on the pregnancy advantage for business. And I'm delighted today to welcome a wonderful guest, and it's a lady who is based over in Melbourne, Australia, and she's no stranger to small business. She took her own business from zero to $500,000 in 3 months, and her creative powerhouse is no way slowing down since she's become a mum to her baby James last year. So I'm delighted today to welcome Dr Joanna Martin and to have a conversation with her about the pregnancy advantage. Hi Joanna.
Hey Lisa, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
My pleasure, and I appreciate you joining us at the end of your day. I know with the time difference and with a young baby it is a long day for you, so very excited to have you on the call today and to chat to you about how life is for you now that you're a very busy working mum.
Yes, very happy to have that conversation. I've got the baby monitor just sitting next to the laptop, so we're hoping that we don't hear anything from that during the course of the conversation, but it's all about multitasking once you're a working mum.
Exactly. So many congratulations on that. And James, I think now is just coming up to 1 year old, is that right?
Yeah, he's going to be one very, very soon, so it's exciting times.
Okay, wonderful. So to everybody who's watching who perhaps doesn't know you and I, just to explain a little bit about us both, I work as an aromatherapist and reflexologist in London, and I've been very busy with my clients over the last few years working in the maternity area and dealing with very busy career women, helping them during their pregnancies. And I've really noticed a change in their mindset, their behaviour since becoming pregnant, and it's something I'm really fascinated in, and there's a lot of research now to support the changes, the creativity, the power that comes out when you go through this lifestyle change. And as you are somebody who I know has focused very much on being a lifestyle design specialist, I'm really sort of working with your new baby now. I was interested to chat to you on this topic. So if you could just introduce everybody to yourself and just tell them a little bit about your story, and that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. Well, what I do now is a far cry from what I trained to do, which is often the case, I think, for many of us. I actually trained to be a medical doctor, and I worked for a couple of years before having my first, what I now refer to as lifestyle shift, which was to leave medicine, not because I didn't like it, like I never hated it or anything, but I just always had this wondering, what if, what if I actually followed my heart, what if I followed my dreams? And when one of my favorite patients passed away, it really woke me up to the fact that we all have a limited amount of time on the planet, and although we live as though we're going to last forever and we'll do it someday kind of never comes. So I resolved to go and try what I'd always thought I'd like to do, and that was be an actress. So I left my medical profession and went off to drama school, and that was heaps of fun and a massive change, of course. But very, before too long, as a performer, I realized that while I was having a lot of fun, I didn't really feel like I was making much of a difference anymore, and it was that caused me to seek out, I guess, the personal development industry, although I didn't really know it existed until I ended up at my first seminar. And being at my first seminar, I saw the guy up on stage. He was sharing amazing tools that really helped to create an amazing life. And he was, there was a performance element certainly to what he was doing, and it's sort of like all of the pieces fell into place, and I thought, that's it, that's what I want to do. So I started my own coaching business here in Sydney in Australia, and it went fairly well to start with. But when I started speaking, as opposed to just the coaching, business really took off, and it grew, and I was training in Australia and the UK and the US, speaking to huge audiences of up to 3,000 at a time.
Oh.
What I discovered was during that period of time I was super busy, and I had that kind of very glamorous lifestyle, which from the outside looking in was quite enviable, but after a couple of years it was really exhausting, and I was having my 30th birthday over in London, and my family and my boyfriend, who is now my husband, we're all back in Australia, and I was having my 30th birthday on Skype. And for everyone who's turned 30, you know how traumatic your 30th is. And to do it alone on the other side of the world kind of didn't work for me. So I realized something had to change at that point. So I kind of left all of that behind and did some nothing for a long time, and a bit of navel gazing, I suppose. And then pretty soon after that, we got clear on what we wanted to do. We took ourselves through what I now refer to as a lifestyle design process. Like my husband and I, you know, kind of figured it out over a bottle of Pinot down by the water one day. It was nothing kind of, we set out to set some goals, but we realized there's a whole lot of stuff you have to talk about before you set a goal. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we kind of created our lifestyle, what we wanted our lifestyle to look like, decided therefore what we wanted business to look like, and went ahead and launched that, and it was wildly successful very quickly. And I guess the biggest lifestyle shift that I've had in most recent times has been James, and the gearing up for his arrival, like pregnancy, was a massive shift for me, and now having him is another shift again. And so I'm just immensely grateful for that process we went through, you know, several years ago now, of crafting our business to fit our life. Mm-hmm. Because if we hadn't done that right at the get-go, there wouldn't have been the space to be the kind of mum that I wanted to be. So I'm really grateful for, you know, I guess the consciousness that we brought to that, because it really has made this transition probably a lot easier than it would have otherwise been. You know, if we just, you know, if I've been trying to figure it out as we went, if that makes sense.
And I think that can be the challenge for a lot of women when they find themselves in a career that is quite inflexible in many ways. And I know it's a challenge for corporations and for business who want to retain their key women. How do they do that? How do they create a more flexible working environment that allows them to grow as women, grow as people, grow their families, but also you know, stay true to the corporation and delivering for them. And I noticed, I listened to a talk from you not that long ago where you talked about the 9-month period that you had off as a kind of sabbatical, and then your 9-month period of your pregnancy. And I think that's something I'm very interested in the change that happens when you have a space to transition. And I know myself, having gone through not a birth actually, but a bereavement, but a huge period of change, and it lasted for about 9 months, and it was the transition. And out of that, I did come out with very different lifestyle goals and very different lifestyle expectations, and creatively I had opened myself up, I think, to lots of new ideas which perhaps weren't coming through when I was so busy or before. And I wondered what you thought of that in that time period that you'd spent.
It feels to me, and this is purely anecdotal, but I'm sure if we kind of looked, it feels to me that 9 to 10 months, I mean, my baby was born at 3 weeks and 5 days overdue, so maybe mine's a little longer than 9 months. But it feels to me that kind of 9-10 month sort of cycle is actually a very inbuilt time period for us as women. You know, we are cyclical creatures as opposed to men who are not. You know, we are a different, you know, a different sex, not a different species, but it feels like it sometimes because we have these cycles. We have our monthly cycles. I think there's definitely this 9-month kind of, you know, gestation period, not only for our babies but also for our brain children. You know. And if I look at that 9-month sort of sabbatical that I had and map the emotional journey of that across the emotional journey of my pregnancy, they're really very similar. You know, the first 4 months in both cases were spent grieving, feeling like shit, you know, just feeling downright exhausted and checked out, and am I ever going to find a spark in my life again? Doubting my sanity. You know, I wouldn't say I had an easy pregnancy, but it was very similar also in that kind of you know, birth of the new brainchild space that I had too. So the first sort of 4 months were really, really difficult. There was about a month in the middle where it felt kind of good, and I knew that there was hope, and I could see a light at the end of the tunnel, and what have you, again, in both cases. And then the final 4 months then was all shifted to that was about how long it took for us to come up with, when we were kind of having the sabbatical. You know, my husband said to me, I don't want you to make any decisions for 4 months, which was really fabulous advice, because I was in no position to. You know, I really did have to let go and shed and, reestablish. And then, but after that 4-month period of time, then it was like all of that had gone, and we could start to create. And so we started to dream, I guess, and create things. And then those final sort of months were just a gathering of energy towards this one thing, which in one case was the launch of a business, and in another case was the birth of a baby. And it just became all consuming to the exclusion of everything else. So I think it's a really special period of time. If I ever had to undergo, it's interesting, and I've seen it since the birth of James. My sister said this to me, and it has made a lot of sense. She said, you carry them for 9 months on the inside. It takes them 9 months to get used to being on the outside, and then it takes you 9 months after that to kind of find the new you, because your first 9 months of being a mum is all about the bulb, and then you wake up at about 9-10 months and go, oh, hello, I've got a bit of a life here. And then there's that, oh my God, what do I do? Who am I? How do I express myself in the world again, now that it's not all about getting the baby to sleep, kind of thing.
Yeah, and finding balance, I think that's the key thing. And I think that's where a lot of women find it quite challenging, because, if you have spent all that time just focusing on your baby, then the transition back into work can seem very daunting and very difficult. But I have other clients who go back to work quite quickly. They go back 3 or 4 months when really they're not quite ready. They're not ready to make that separation. But because of financial constraints or work constraints, commitments that they have in their position, they make that choice. So I think, when you've got that space, when you're lucky enough, when you've been smart enough previously to have created a lifestyle that allows you that space to do what you want to do, and the creativity that can come from that, can be awesome. Because my understanding now is your business is really sort of flying even better, do you feel, than before you had your baby?
Sorry?
Do you feel your business is flying better now than before, since you had your baby?
Oh, yeah, look, absolutely. My business has got a whole new lease on life. I think, if you want to take things to another level as a woman in business, whether it be in a corporate, in a role as an employee, or as a team member, or in your own business, have a baby. The creativity it unleashes is extraordinary. The voraciousness with which you take on your management of your time and your energy, your effectiveness, it all just goes through the roof in my experience. And what, from my perspective, is really important is that it comes from a much more feminine place, because for a lot of us, the results that we create in a business context is very much from masculine energy. And for me, for a long part of the journey of business, for me, certainly when I was tearing around the world like a crazy woman, I was very much in my masculine energy, and it was exhausting, and kind of like there was success but emptiness as well. And in retrospect now, coming from a place of femininity, and where I set my goals and my vision for the future from my feminine, harness up my inner masculine to get things done from time to time, but by and large come from that feminine energy place. The richness of life is, it's like it used to be black and white, and now it's color. It's like really, it's really huge, that shift. And so I think motherhood is like the hormonal cocktail of it serves for you to have this incredibly undeniable experience of what it is to be feminine, not just female but feminine. That whole oxytocin thing is extraordinary, and I think it's serves us really, really well in business if we choose to continue that into our future, roles, whatever they may be.
Yeah, and I think that's what I feel very passionate about. It's it's certainly about having a choice. It's certainly about going with your own feelings. But I think believing that actually it is very possible to continue your work and to continue having a very successful career, after you've had a baby is so important. And to be much more feminine, because I think that my experience of working in the corporate market sort of, for about 10, 15 years was very much, I was a woman in a man's clothing sort of thing, and very much stepping in. I remember my boyfriend at the time said to me, you're more a man than I am. I was very, very, on my point, and now I find it hard to believe. I feel much more sort of, at home with myself, and much more authentic. But it's taken a long time to get there, and I made a massive career shift, going from working in the corporate market to becoming a therapist. I mean, I probably couldn't have changed it, much more. And I remember when I came back to the UK after living in Australia, I did my training out there for 6 years. When I came back here, everyone thought, what's happened to you? Who are you? My sister felt that I was, not the person that she knew, and my friends. I think I'd just become this different person, when actually I felt like I was actually starting to become myself. I was actually stepping into my own path. I was becoming my own person, and I felt very, very comfortable, with who I was then. And it's taken me this journey to now feel, very secure in that, and I think the next stage will be then to have a baby and move forward. But I find it fascinating when I talk to women like yourself whose businesses have grown so much, and I know something that you talked about before is the Superwoman myth, and that's an interesting sort of aspect to look at. Can you expand on that a little bit more for us?
Sorry, I'm not picking up everything that you say. What was it that you wanted me to expand on?
On the Superwoman myth.
Ah, yes, yeah. Well, the Superwoman myth that I talk about is this kind of I mean, there was a book that came out, I think it was in the 70s, called The Superwoman, and it was really all about how to be, the domestic goddess, the amazing hostess, the whore in the bedroom, the whole shooting match. It was and I was talking to I've not actually read that book myself, but I was talking to in another interview with a woman who took it as her Bible, and she said the ironic thing was that while it was designed for women, in order to actually do this all things for all people, you had to be a man, like you had to kind of produce and get it all done. And I'm a great believer in you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. I think Oprah Winfrey said that, and I totally 100% agree with that. The thing is, the reason we become this superwoman, and we all become this superwoman. Some of us don't stop at being superwoman. We continue on to Superman, like you and I. We became supermen, better men than our boyfriends from time to time. It's because as we grow up, it's because of the cultures that we're born into. We're in an incredibly masculine culture in the UK, in Australia. There's an interesting piece of research done by a gentleman by the name of Hofstadter, and he ranked each of the countries in terms of relative masculinity or femininity of the culture of the nation. And UK is the 9th most masculine culture in the world. Wow. Australia comes in at number 16. Really feminine cultures, interestingly enough, are the Scandinavian cultures. So, and it's based on values and what's important inside of a culture. Masculine being competition, achievement, that sort of thing. Feminine values being things like community, collaboration. Those kind of more feminine, I guess, values. And so, we're in a masculine culture to start with. We're then inside, when it comes to work, inside of a masculine paradigm. Like business is a masculine paradigm. It has been really since it was invented. It was commerce was created really at about the time that that we see a shift from a feminine divinity to a masculine divinity. God arrives, and it kind of is about the same time as we're settling down into, from a historical perspective, where we're settling down into villages, as opposed to farm instead of using the land. Like, so there's surplus and trade and all of those things start about the same time. It's a masculine paradigm. So here we are in a masculine culture, then inside a masculine paradigm, and then we have a series of experiences over our life which cause to reinforce beliefs. Things like, if you want something done right, you've got to do it yourself. Show me a woman that doesn't believe that at some level.
Joe, sorry to interrupt, I just thought, have you got your earphones?
I can get them, yes.
I just want to make sure that we're catching everything, because I know it's very important what we're chatting about, and I'm just suddenly...
Let's see here.
Sorry to cut you off when you're full flow.
That's all right.
Perfect.
Can you hear me okay there?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, cool. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so we've got the culture, then we've got the business paradigm, and then within that we have our own individual paradigms, and we all have different versions of this. But for me, it was very much a case of beliefs that I had about life, such as, if you want something done right, you've got to do it yourself. Nothing worth having is ever easy. You've got to work hard for your money. That kind of a belief system. It'll be just quicker if I do it myself. And all of these beliefs, so that we become these overachieving, perfectionistic creatures that hell bent on producing and achieving. Because for me, for the longest time, I had love and achievement collapsed into one. I thought that in order to be loved, I needed to be achieving. I mean, that's how you become a doctor with first-class honours, and then you go to drama school, and then you start your own business, and you become a millionaire before the age of 32, right? It's because you have a total overachiever streak. Then when you wake up to that and you go, hang on a second, maybe this isn't working for me anymore, you can start to stitch these. So this Superwoman thing, like we are superwomen, but unfortunately Superwoman is a very masculine energy archetype, and Superwoman doesn't actually have much fun. She produces amazingly, and she succeeds, and she's admired, but she's also she's also given a lot of space.
Yeah, I was going to say quite cold, quite distanced. Not the qualities that we associate with femininity, really. The warmth and the love and the compassion and those qualities, which I think actually are really valuable qualities in the world today. And I know in Arianna Huffington's book at the moment, Thrive, the third metric, she talks very much about, we've always measured success with money and power. Those are very sort of masculine, as you say, qualities, and very much focusing on achievement, as opposed to well-being, happiness, joy, things that seem very ambiguous and all a bit wafty and out there, actually are what it's all about. I've certainly realized in my own life, if I'm not waking up and enjoying my days, and I'm not going to bed sort of with a smile on my face, there's really not much to it. Whatever you've got in your bank account.
What's the point of everything else?
Yeah. So, and I think it's about getting a balance. It's important to be achieving, to bring in that masculine energy and to achieve things, to have very clear goals, and that sort of drives us forward. But to get the balance, and I think that's what I'm very much focusing on, is certainly within the corporate market, having that balance of male and female energy, embracing female energy as much as possible, and allowing the two to connect and to work together, to work as a team, because I think that's the thing. We both need both sides of that, and certainly, as you've mentioned in this talk today, your partner Greg has really been very supportive and has given you, the times to pull back and the times to move forward. And so I think as well it's so important to work collectively, men and women, but knowing that you are a woman and working with those skills and not trying to be, you know, all man and all woman in the one body.
Definitely, absolutely. We need and I think when it comes to creating our vision for our lives, that needs to be created from our feminine energy. Because otherwise, if you set a goal from your masculine energy and then you strategic plan your way to achieving it, you'll achieve that goal, especially if you've got some Superwoman going on. But when you achieve it, you'll go, I thought I'd be happier than this.
Yeah.
But it won't feel right because it was never set from your truth and from your, you know, your most authentic self. So I think, you know, for many of us, what we need, you know, we need to really start thinking in that context. You know, if I actually didn't have to achieve to feel worthy, which is what gets many of us caught up in this Superwoman trap. If I actually didn't have to achieve to feel like I could be loved or that I was worthy, which is really hard because that's what our culture tells us that we have. Like, you look at the setup of our culture. You know, if you're not achieving, if you're not producing at work, well, then you don't have worth. How we define worth in our society is by your ability to produce results, and economic results, not, you know, not how happy are your children, how well-rounded are they, you know, how healthy are they. Where does this ever show up in terms of being of worth from a societal or cultural perspective, which is ridiculous because that is, like, those measurements, if we could measure them, are more crucial to the functioning of a sustainable, wealthy, happy society than, you know, how many streets you were able to clean today or whatever it might be, you know. So if we can kind of give ourselves as women, I believe, the permission to think, if I wasn't achieving, you know, what would be worth, if I didn't have to achieve to feel like I was worthwhile, where would I spend my time? What would give me the greatest joy? And then oftentimes what comes out of that, when we really give ourselves permission to go there and dream there, is a bigger vision and a bigger mission for our lives than anything we could ever dream up from our masculine energy. You know, it's quite extraordinary when I coach women through that shift, and they kind of really get it. It's extraordinary who they become and how, you know, the day-to-day kind of challenges seem to, they're still there, but what becomes unleashed is this incredible energy to be able to deal with the day-to-day challenges and still have something to spare for usually some kind of planetary impact, you know. At the 2009 Vancouver Peace Summit, the Dalai Lama said the world will be saved by the Western woman. And sure as heck ain't going to be saved by Superwoman because she's too busy, you know, achieving, striving, you know, not even noticing that the world needs saving. But when we step into our feminine energy, we kind of really kind of get a sense of what's going on. We also will unleash the energy that it's going to take to fulfill on that kind of marching orders, I think. So yeah, it's important.
So, I mean, as a woman who's gone through pregnancy, what do you feel is the biggest thing that you've learned from that experience and that you could share to women moving forward?
The greatest thing that I think I took away from the pregnancy part, as opposed to, you know, having James, but if, you know, my greatest learning during pregnancy was trusting in divine timing. Because for me, the challenge of pregnancy was this daily coming face to face with my mortality, or like not mortality, but my limits. You know, my limits in this physical body. I was very sick. I was very tired. You know, I'm sure if I went along to a GP, they probably would have told me that I was depressed. You know, if I'd answered the question honestly, but I didn't want anyone to label me as depressed because I knew it was just big hormonal shifts and identity shifts and things going on. You know, I wanted to kind of create the next phase of my business. More than that, I wanted to do it, and so much of my desire to achieve just vanished. Like, I didn't care about, like, most of the way through my pregnancy, I really didn't care much about business. And as someone whose identity has become fairly linked into my, to being an entrepreneur, I know who I am as not an entrepreneur, but it's how so much of the world knows me. That felt really odd. Like, gee, am I going to fit into one of those people who's a mum and just wants to be a mum? And how do I feel about that? All of that stuff I had to kind of go through and process. Interestingly, literally, I think within days of James being born, all of that kind of inward focus and pulling away from the world evaporated. And from about, I don't know, maybe within the week, I was starting to dream about what we could do with business and really where it needed to go and what the much bigger picture was. And my creativity just was unleashed at a level I've never, ever experienced that. Now, of course, the horror, not horrible, but the amazing challenge of that was I now had less time than I'd ever had before in my life. I couldn't actually implement anything because I've got, a baby on my boob, and he never slept very well for like the first 8 months of his life. And so there was no time to do anything with it. But it sort of, it was like I was composing it in my mind and creating in my mind. So at a level I've never done that before. So what I needed to get about pregnancy was just to trust that my body knew best and to trust this cyclical thing. Because I think we do it on a month-by-month basis, when we're menstruating and stuff. We have different energies on different days, and some days you just got to trust, I can't do anything today. And I need to know that in 4 or 5 days I need to trust that I'll have amazing amounts of energy. Today I don't. And so for me it was like a 9-month journey of allowing space to not produce and to not just not produce, but to not want to produce, not want to create, not want to, impact others. All I wanted to do was sleep, nurture, learn everything about this little, button inside. And that was my journey. Everyone's journey is different.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's true. I mean, it is a unique journey. But I think a lot of the women that I see are in an environment where they're forced to really go against how they truly feel. They've got commitments, they've got deadlines, they're part of a team, and that's the real challenge, I think, when you're transitioning through an experience and you're within a structure. How do you grow with that? And I think that's the challenge for corporations. And I know that they're working very hard on that. I know that they value their women. And the women I talk to feel that, but somehow it's missing the mark, somehow it's missing the spot. And I think that's what we need to look at is how can we transition more elegantly, how can we go through that process and trust it and be okay with that. When we're working in a world where we're all about deadlines, we're all about success, we're all about achievement. The rest of you may be pregnant, but the person next to you isn't. So how do you get that balance? How do you get it so that everything still goes on? But I think certainly it's interesting to listen and share with your experiences and to hear how it's working for you, and the joy that I think that you get as well, and the level of creativity that I see with women when they have gone through that pregnancy and that birthing experience, and believing that their mind can come up with all sorts of amazing things that they never even dreamed of, and you have such a different purpose then as well. I think from a place as a mother. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Everything, prior to being a mum, I'd never set more than like a 3-year kind of wafty goal, but I never really had planned more than 3 months of my life ahead. Like, really, never planned more than 3 months ahead. All of a sudden, when I became pregnant, I started thinking about my life's work. Yeah. And 20 years seemed like a reasonable amount of time to be working on something, because it was like, okay, I'm going to be a full-time mum for the next 20 years, and I'm going to be working, but really every shred of, this is the wonderful thing about being a woman, I can be conscious of my of my motherness at all times while still doing other things, whether we have this ability to hold more than one thing, obviously, in our consciousness. That's no news to anyone female. So, you know, I knew that that was going to be who I was going to be, and such a big part of who I'm going to be for the next 20 years. So how does the rest of, you know, of life kind of fit into that? So yeah, your purpose does shift. The new phase of my business, you know, I've just had a team meeting today with, you know, flew in my team from, we work virtually, so we flew them in from all over the world to work together on the new phase of our business, which will be launching later on this year. And its reason for being and its deeper level purpose is richer and more connected than anything I've ever done before, because I want to create something that is going to actually impact on a global scale the world that my son is going to be growing up into, and that he's going to be bringing his kids into. Like, it just, you know,
you just suddenly think so much bigger.
You do. It's not about, like, you know, how do I put food on the table anymore. It's about, no, there's, you know, what's the point of any of that if the context of it is not in place? And I know, you know, I hear myself speak, and I know that I'm blessed in a position to be able to have these conversations and not just struggle with the day-to-day and so on. And I also, you know, I heard you say earlier, you were lucky to be able to do that. Lucky, and I sat down and made my life that way. You did
make some plans, yeah. It was planned. It wasn't just, it just didn't fall in your lap.
And the whole, you know, the whole 3 years before we got pregnant, Greg and I were setting a business up such that there was space for me. Because we always said, you know, God forbid anything go wrong with the pregnancy, but if it did, we want the business to be able to continue without you, and so on and so forth. And it meant making some difficult decisions. I mean, it started with, well, okay, if I want my life to look like X, then I can't be a doctor, you know. That was the first decision. If I want my life to look like X, then I can't be an actor, you know. There's something else, and then I found that thing that's right for me. So, you know, I really shy away from, like there's, I think you can really set things up to be the best possible version for yourself if you're in a role that you love and it's inside of those corporate structures and, you know, those masculine paradigms of most corporate work. Because let's face it, like, it is, that, as you say, they're making some inroads, but there's a huge transformation you know, that's really necessary for it to be an easy thing for us. So I think you can do a huge amount to set up so that you give yourself the space to have those identity shifts, the space to rest, the space to, you know, honor the process you're going through when you're pregnant, as well as, you know, deliver what you have to deliver in your role. And if it's really important for you to have the experience of being a mother and to give yourself the time and the space to do all of that, no one said you had to stay there. You know, there's so many options available these days for women to create lifestyle businesses, to you know, to do what they do, but do it from home so that they can do it on their own time schedule. Even getting, you know, even working away from the office 2 days a week, 1 day a week, you know, setting that up long before you get pregnant gives you space then, because let's face it, you know, most of us can get done what will take us 8 hours on one day. We could get it done in 3 hours on another day, and then still have time for, you know, for us. So if you're not in the office, there's no one watching. There's lots of ways to done. It's like there's lots of ways to create the space to have the experience of pregnancy and birth and motherhood. You know, if we want to do it that way, you know, it just takes a little bit of conscious lifestyle design, really, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know as part of today you're giving away some access to your fundamental laws of lifestyle. So I know we'll put those details up so that if people want to work with you or contact you and find out a little bit more about how it all comes together, they can certainly do that. And also we'll keep up to date with all of your new progress as well on your exciting journey and your new products. So have you got a date when everything is coming out? I know you're in your planning meeting today.
In the planning meeting today, we're working towards a September launch, which we know is going to be a stretch. A December launch is more likely, but it's going to be over in the UK. We're moving back to the UK, hence, you know, why we're doing this at the moment. But we're moving back to the UK in a couple of weeks, full permanently and kind of full time. So it's going
Oh,
to be
I didn't
happening over
realise.
there.
You're going to be my neighbour.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving to the Cotswolds, baby.
Oh, cool.
So,
lovely. Nice area.
Yeah. So, so definitely watch this space. It's really, really exciting, and it's going to make a massive difference, I think.
Fantastic.
I know.
Yeah, no, you know in your heart, I think. Well, look, Joanna, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's been lovely to connect with you, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time. So I just want to finish by saying thank you so much for sharing your experience with me and for your wisdom, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and really lovely to share a little bit with the ladies who are listening. I hope it makes a difference for somebody.
Thank you, Joanna. That's lovely. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.